Would 20-something-year-old
No.
self
No.
resonate with that at all? Be like, what are you talking about?
No.
You old
What?
person?
Avoiding something? Really?
This is the I'm Uncomfortable podcast, the podcast for people who want to be okay with being uncomfortable. We're your hosts, Vanessa
And Melissa. Okay.
We're back with another episode for you, full of advice and tips and tricks. But as always, we're going to start off with a what's making us uncomfortable lately. Melissa, now that you're back from the desert, would you like to share what's been making you uncomfortable lately?
Well, on that note, I will share an uncomfortable moment from being in the desert. Just for a little bit of background, I took a little triple O, out of office, just for a little break in the Joshua Tree National Park for my boyfriend's birthday. We like to spend it out there every year and ring in his new year there. So it was really nice to be able to just log off for the weekend. Literally, you can't log in because there's no signal out there, which is nice for my brain. It was very nice for my brain. But what I will say is that one of the uncomfortable things that happened was that my cycle lined up with being in the desert. So luckily, it was the tail end, but still, in a place where I have no running water. The bathroom sitch is just vault toilets, and for those who are familiar with camping, a vault toilet is just, there's no running water, so there's no flush. And, you know, it's just not great when you're on your period and there's just not the amenities that you usually have to make yourself feel comfortable. So it was really a test of resilience.
None of this is making me want to go camping, ever. And I already didn't want to go.
It was just funny because I track my cycle, and my partner is aware of it as well. We were like, what's happening? How come? Because I was late a couple of days, so we're like, no, it's gonna happen while we're on the camping trip, like full stop, you know. But luckily, it started 3 or 4 days, before we went on the camping trip. It was supposed to be like a week of a gap before, so it was just unfortunate that it would happen that way. But it was fine. We had a system. I brought the necessary tools, the 2-ply, triple-ply toilet paper for myself, not the one that's stocked in that bathroom. Just little things to make myself a little bit more comfortable, but definitely not the vibe.
I feel like your body knows, like it's like, oh, you've got a big thing coming up.
Mm-hmm.
I'm gonna show up then because I want to be included. I don't want to be left out. So I'm gonna wait. Actually, I know you were expecting me, but I'm gonna wait. Just go wait.
It's like maybe the stress of me and wanting it to happen at a certain timing was just like, oh, you're stressed?
Maybe.
Well, we're going to delay it because your body's in stress, right? And then but it's okay. I survived. It was fine. I actually, it was cool because my brother's fiance, who works at the hospital, was able to get me these like really amazing like wipes that are for people that they use to sponge bath people, and it actually was refreshing. So I used those to at least freshen up. But it definitely helped. All the little tools.
Do they sell
all the little
those for camping? Because I feel like they could make a killing selling that shit for camping.
Because I was very doubtful. I don't really like baby wipes because it leaves some sort of residue, like that, or like the scent, or like it's not the same. But when I used that, I was like, wow, I actually feel very clean. So, anyways, that was my uncomfortable moment. Do not recommend, but I do recommend going out into the desert and unplugging for a while, just not the period part.
Okay, I could get behind that. I could go to like a cabin in the desert, like a little cute little house, and disconnect,
Yeah.
I could do that, maybe. I'm already struggling in this hotel room, so I don't know how.
Is that your uncomfortable moment? Is that where you're going to...
What should I assume? Well, kind of. So my uncomfortable moment is that I am in a hotel. I come out now once a week for work. It's been wild. But I've been staying at hotels that are more like a little studio. So there's a kitchen, and my uncomfortable moment is that I actually, for 21 Medium, decided I was going to try cooking a meal that is aligned to my cycle. And apparently, shrimp is one of. I'll post it. I'll post like the ingredients that I ended up using. But look at this. It's
Your little
shrimp
your stir
and
fry.
cucumber and bell pepper and lemon and garlic. And yeah, and I made it this cute little kitchen. And like, look at these cute little salt and pepper shakers, you guys. They're
He's
so
so
small.
cute.
They're so cute. Yeah, it was a challenge because I also didn't have cooking oil, and I was texting Melissa. I was like, I fucked up. I don't have cooking oil. What do I do? And like, they don't sell cooking oil in the little shop downstairs, but for some reason they sell like bouillon. How do you pronounce it?
Bouillon cubes or
Yeah,
whatever.
they sell the cubes there. So I was like on my phone Googling, like, can you cook in bouillon cubes
You sure
instead of
can.
oil?
Yeah.
Apparently you can. So yeah, I'm just having a pretty delicious light meal. I got some papaya in the fridge as well, drinking my lemon water.
Cool.
I was like, what is lemon water? Is it just lemon and water? That sounds like. So I'm drinking my lemon water. And it was very uncomfortable because I've never tried to eat food aligned to my cycle before, which seems like it's a really big deal, but I tried it today and it was really easy. So
Yeah. A little bit of struggle, the uncomfortable part, but made it through.
yeah. I'm getting used to a new kitchen. I'm trying out a new place. It is what it is. But
Yeah.
so that made me uncomfortable, but in a good way. I feel like I'm growing. I'm understanding food and my body more. It's very nice. Love it. It's great. We have the grocery guides available for you guys to try. If you want to join us, if you haven't already, for 21 Medium. It's available if you go to our page, and we can send it to you for free.
Yeah. Free resources, align with your cycle. It's uncomfortable, but also fun, so do it with us.
Now, before we get into today's topic, we do want to take a moment to thank our host, Riverside, record crystal clear audio and 4K video, edit with AI, and publish in minutes all from your browser. Effortless, professional. Try it now at riverside.fm. Okay, good. That was good. We're getting better at this. Okay. Okay, so today's episode was inspired by a couple of videos that we saw on TikTok and Instagram, circling around advice that you would give to your younger self. And as someone who is probably going to be in therapy for the rest of her life, Jillian always talks to me about advice that she might have given herself when she was younger and still learning about herself and the world. And so I thought it would be nice for us to share some advice from us that we could give to our 20-something-year-old selves. And we also asked you all to give us some advice. So I have some tidbits from you to share as well. But Melissa, is there anything making you uncomfortable about thinking about advice that you would give yourself when you were younger?
Well, I know when you initially brought this idea to the table, I was like, I don't have advice. I'm
You
not
did it. You're
qualified to
like, I
give
don't have advice.
advice.
And I was like, you want to give advice when we were babies, when we were just babies in elementary school. That was your whole
I
thing.
do remember saying that. You called me out, and with, it was good because I needed to be reminded that when I was younger, because I read these series of books where the main character was writing an advice column. That was my dream when I was younger, to write for a magazine and be like the advice columnist. And I would have to come up with some sort of advice to be qualified.
Be an advice girly, of course.
Yeah. And I know that I do give advice when prompted by people or asked by people, but I don't ever consider myself qualified. I just give advice from my experience.
To be qualified. We just claim to give advice.
I don't know. I just think that I always have the disclaimer that this is just from my experience. So this is what I'm telling my younger self.
I can't tell you what to do, but if it were from me, if it was me, this is what I would do. But I'm excited to hear the advice that you would give to your younger self. And I wonder if it's similar advice that I would give or that other people would give. And I was talking to one of my friends about this and getting her advice in person over coffee, which was wonderful.
Cute.
And she was like, I don't know if my 20-something-year-old self would have listened to the advice that I've given.
Interesting.
And TBH, I don't think I would have listened either. As someone who apparently loves to learn the hard way, I don't know that I would have been able to take my own advice, but I think it's nice to have heard it and maybe it sits with you in a different way.
Yeah.
So I'm excited to get into it. Okay, so we're going to start by sharing the advice that you all suggested and pitched to us, and we're going to see if we can relate. And if you're listening, if you can relate, we hope that you share it with us. And this first piece of advice that I'm going to share with you made me laugh so hard because I was like, yeah, I definitely feel that. Okay, so this first tidbit of advice, when she initially replied, all she said was, chill out, LOL. I was like, care to elaborate on that? And she said that she felt like she was just so high strung and focused so much on like silly school things that looking back now, she realizes like don't matter. She also described herself as someone who would never say no. And she thinks that potentially is why she has the job now and she's very good at it. However, she was like, I still could have chilled out a smidge. Just a smidge.
I will say off the bat, that is one of the pieces of advice I also am giving my younger self. It wasn't in those exact words per se, but all I wrote in my bullet point was slow the fuck down. And it was, where are you in a rush to? Adult responsibilities? Whack. Enjoy
Whack.
and appreciate the now is what I said.
Why
Because
do you
really
feel that way though? Like, 'cause I don't know if I wrote that same thing down, but like I do get that, the idea of like slow down. Where are you going? Where are you running to?
Yeah, I just think that when you're surrounded, at least in a university campus experience, you just see everyone bustling around, and I think also the expectations that we were given or shown in terms of getting the degree, getting the career, getting all of those things, it just seemed like after high school it was a big checklist, you know?
Yes.
So you're just running towards these things to get it done. Yet we don't have the prefrontal cortex yet to really understand that part of the enjoyment of getting those things is the process of getting there. So yeah, as a younger early 20s person, I was like, I don't know what slowing down means.
No.
Yeah.
And I don't understand this phenomenon, but like, why is it when we were like 23, 24, I remember being like, oh my God, I'm getting so much older. I'm going to be 25 soon. Like, I got to have this, like planned out ahead. And now that I'm in my, albeit early 30s, I'm just like, I'm so young. Life is life in. Like, it's great. I have all this time. But I did not feel that way when I was younger. Do you feel this now?
I feel the same. I know that there are a half of us in our early 30s that are very much leaning into, I'm old, you know, and things aren't the way they used to be. But then the other half is like, but we're still young, you know, we could get into a whole other discussion about how the reason why we felt that way in our early 20s was because we thought that you needed to get married at a certain age, you know what I mean? And we've brought this up before.
The shoulds and the woulds.
Yes, so it's, yeah, I still feel pretty young. 32, gonna be 33 this year. I've never been really afraid of, I know that when you get older, people are like, oh, they stop showing their age or listing out their age when they post about their birthday because they don't want people to know how old they are. I don't really care about that, you know? Yeah. I still feel pretty darn young. I still get carded from time to time. You know?
Okay, well, I'm like offended. Oh, can you not maybe take out my wallet right now? Like, just serve me the alcohol.
But it's always just like you hate being carded because it's an inconvenience. But then when you don't get carded, I go home and I'm always thinking about it. Like, oh, why didn't they card me this time?
Okay, well, I just feel like now I can look at someone and be like, you're too young for me. Like, I was at a bar. bar recently.
Mm-hmm.
And I went by myself to go get a drink for one of my friends. And, this guy just starts casually talking to me, right? And I
Mm-hmm.
just looked over at him and I was like, you are absolutely too young for me. I I can't. And sure enough, I found out he was like freshly 21. And I was like, goodbye.
Goodbye. See you
And
later.
he goes, how long have you been drinking? And I was like, at least 10 more years than you, minimum. So I don't know
Bye
about
bye.
this. Maybe good luck, though.
Yeah.
Like, is your friend here? Are you going to be okay? He was like, don't do that. Don't make me feel young. I'm like, but you are.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it was a cute moment. It wasn't creepy at all, but it was just funny. And I was just like, wow, yeah, like you're a child to me in my mind, right? And I
Yeah. And yeah,
it's different.
just recently, when I was camping, I don't know what the conversation was about, but the reference was like, "Oh, yeah, kids these days." Someone said that, and then we're like, "Okay, just for clarification and reference, when you say kids, how old are you like talking about?" And then he
Toddler?
was like, "Oh, like early 20s, like 20, you know." But really, when I look at like when I watch collegiate sports, I
Yeah.
always say to myself, these kids are 19 to
Yes.
21 years old,
But
and
I didn't
they're
feel like a kid. I did
yeah,
not feel like a kid. At 19 and 20, I was like, I'm an adult.
yeah. I'm an adult, but also my
I do
mommy's
adult
paying my
things.
rent, you know.
The government was paying mine, excuse me.
Well, yeah, mine was half and half. Like I was in student loan debt, but you
Okay,
know.
but somebody actually did have very, very similar advice to the younger self. So her first piece of advice was trust what I actually want. And when I pressed her, like, what does that mean to trust what you actually want? She said, in younger years, I felt very fueled by those around me and my idea of what other people wanted me to be. Just a lot
Oh.
of other people's opinions. And she was like, even though I didn't want to do things, I would do them because I thought it would make other people happy, or I thought that's what I was supposed to do. And so that's what I did. And when we were talking about it more, I asked her, like, is this why you feel like you might have stayed in relationships longer than you should have, or done things for longer than you should have? And she was like, oh, absolutely. Because I wasn't trusting what I wanted. I was chasing this thing that I thought that I was supposed to do and that would make everyone happy and make everyone think that I was successful, even though that's not necessarily what I wanted, truly
Mhm.
in my heart. I was like, that's crazy.
Yeah.
Like, I love hearing that from her because I've seen like her growth because we first started like teaching together.
Mhm.
And so I've seen her journey and she's seen mine, just like our evolution from like freshly out of college, like, what's happening? This is my
Yeah.
first job. So like
Yeah.
full ass adults, like actually I would consider myself an adult.
Yeah.
And I've seen her make steady steps towards choosing things she actually does want. But like you said earlier, there is a lot to be learned, I think, in the process of discovering that unfortunately I don't actually think you could bypass by just hearing the advice. And again, I think it's important to hear the advice,
Mhm.
but sometimes you just have
Does it
to
resonate?
experience it. No,
Who knows?
yeah.
Yeah.
Like to fully know it, to fully have learned it, I think you have to do it.
I know that for me, as a younger sibling, I definitely took heed and learned a lot of lessons and avoided things by seeing what my older brother was doing or not doing. And I
Mm.
and and I know that there is you mentioned learning the hard way is going through that, going through whatever it is to learn the lesson. I think I can resonate with both. Like, and also relating back to what your friend was saying, it kind of could be in a negative way too. Me taking heed of what my brother was doing or not doing, because sometimes I could see how it could have put a layer of maybe fear to or some sort of barrier for me to experience new things that I probably would
Okay, yeah.
have enjoyed or, you know, learned a lesson through doing. So I could see it both negative and positive, like
Okay.
listening to the people around you, taking their advice or not taking their advice, or,
I wonder if there's an element. where it's like you're going down a path and you're like, oh, wait, this is what they meant, or this is what my brother was talking about. And then realizing it as you're doing it. Because there have been moments in my journey through life where I have paused and like, oh, hold on, I think this is what they meant by that. And then I've been able to recognize it, I think, a little faster. So maybe it's nice to hear in the sense that you can recognize it because it's been told to you. But if it's never been told to you, you don't know.
Good luck.
Good luck. Good luck. Well,
Maybe.
in that same line of thinking, one of the pieces of advice that I wanted to give myself that I wrote down was creating the version of yourself you want can't be done on a vision board. It's a bunch of little choices that over time add up to a change, and you might not notice the change till a lot later. Mm-hmm.
I do like that one. It kind of reminds me of, I think there's also a similar trend going around, which people are saying, "Oh, I got coffee with my 20-year-old self, and this is what, I arrived on time, she arrived 5 minutes late," or whatever those specifics are, And I think it's that perspective again when you're going through something or chasing after a goal, you kind of forget how much progress you've made.
Yes.
Because then I always see a similar quote where the gist of it really is kind of telling yourself your past self would be so proud of your current self. So give yourself a pat on the back, basically. Because, sometimes you just are speeding through life and you don't really realize how much you actually have accomplished.
Okay. I like the mental exercise of imagining that you're sitting down with your 20-something-year-old self for coffee, because I can more easily, I think, because I was also kind of deer in headlights, even though I pitched this episode idea about like what advice would I give to my younger self. But if I imagine myself sitting down with her and like looking at her, that does kind of help me think about the place that she was at in her life. And this might sound silly, but I've been getting on Facebook because this whole past week I have been basically selling off all the things that I no longer need because I've officially moved in with Ross. And of course, I don't need 3 air fryers in the new place. So I've just been selling. Long story, but I wasn't trying to bring mine and add a third into the mix. Right. So I've been on Facebook Marketplace and I've been selling stuff. And I looked at my profile picture, and it was a picture from when you and I went to that Create and Cultivate event in 2020. Was it 2020? Right, before the world shut down. And I was like, oh my God, I am such a different person than this picture in this 2020 little shot. I'm so much different mentally, emotionally, physically, even. And I was like, I even showed it to Ross and he was like, whoa, you look really different. And I was like, yeah, apparently I do. But I really didn't notice how different until I was staring at her and I couldn't ignore it. And I was like, wow. And I thought about everything that she was going through. And I laughed because I was like, you don't even know, girl. Like, she's about to get wild.
How many years ago was that? That was 5 years ago?
5 years ago. 5 years ago. That's insane. And I'm like, okay, just different bitch. But I had to learn a lot of the things I had learned by just experience. And this idea of like little choices every day are always going to add up to change. It doesn't matter if it's like, I'm going to read 5 minutes every single day, which is part of our 21 medium challenge, by the way, because 5 minutes a day is way more than thinking I'm going to sit down and read a whole book this month, but you're too intimidated to open the book or you never do.
Yeah.
Then you've read no books versus a couple minutes of a book here and there, and then you eventually finish it. And I think that's been one of the biggest game changers for me too. It's like little changes, just
little small, bite-size, manageable changes. Yeah.
Sustainable. Yeah.
Yeah.
And your whole lifestyle's different. So that was one of them for me.
I like that one a lot. Yeah.
I wonder what you're going to think about this. Okay. It was kind of a joke, but someone else was like, get a hobby. like, do you feel like you don't have hobbies? She was like, I don't know, would you consider organizing a hobby? Which, like, yeah,
Yeah.
because people make entire careers off of organizing. But I get what she's saying. I get what she's saying. She's like, I'm good at organizing, but I wouldn't consider it like a hobby that I do all the time. And
Yeah.
I was almost gonna say, like, do I have hobbies? And I'm like, literally, I'm asking you for our podcast. Yeah, I have a hobby. Like, this is
Yeah. I will say for me personally, I think I have started and stopped many hobbies. Some have stuck around, some come and go, but I've done a lot of different kinds of hobbies for as coming from Miss Arts and Crafts. you
I
know.
mean, you really have. But okay, we've talked about this before because I know that I have actually complained about not having hobbies. And we're like, how do you get hobbies? Like, you have some money.
How
You
do
just
you
use.
get them? How do you collect them?
Well, and then I forced myself to do. I didn't force myself. Well, kind of. I did pottery. I did the 6 classes. I gave it a try. I came back more than once.
Mhm.
Still couldn't jam with it.
Yeah.
I was moving and I picked up my stupid little pot holder thing that had a hole in the middle. Like I did. So I just laughed. But I remember feeling too that I also didn't have hobbies.
Mm.
So where is that coming from? And have you felt like you've always been like a hobby girl, or was it intentional that you went out and got hobbies?
I think I know for myself that I've always liked making things with my hands. Um,
Mm,
whether it was writing literally in a journal versus, typing on a computer. Like I like the mechanics of utilizing my hands to create something out of nothing. That's how I've always been, and I've known that about myself. But I think for in terms of cultivating hobbies over time, I think a lot of it has stemmed from uh, wanting to learn more about what I enjoy and what I enjoy doing. That's
hmm.
outside of the normal things or socializing with others. Because obviously, I love spending time with my family and my friends and all of those kinds of things. But things that I can do alone and be happy doing alone is where a lot of these like where I started pottery because none of my friends were doing pottery and it was something that I know I've always wanted to try but was always scared to. So it's kind of a
Yeah.
combination of pushing myself out of my comfort zone to try something new and also the idea of trying new things for the sake of learning what I like because you know I mean not I don't want to tie everything to like a relationship that I've had but I know that when you do go through a hard breakup or a lot of times people's advice is get a hobby because I think that stems from forcing that person to rediscover who they are and what they enjoy
Yes.
doing. So,
Okay.
yeah, whether it's
Yeah.
from a relationship or not, I think it's just a really good exercise to give yourself to try something new.
I was gonna say, in my latest therapy session, I was talking about work-life balance,
Mm-hmm.
and I work with a lot of very high-achieving people. However, a lot of them also don't stop working, and I've taken very conscious steps towards trying to not make that my identity, even though at one point it really was. And it was really helpful for avoiding a lot of the things that were going on in my life. Like I was the best at my job when my personal life was the shittiest.
Same.
And I'm not saying that's true for everybody, but I was talking about this with her, and she told me about the fact that like people who are so consumed by their job when they get older and their kids have all left and maybe it's just them or maybe it's them and their partner and they retire, if that has been their only thing, if they have found nothing outside themselves that they can pour their energy into, these people just like die. And it's crazy to think about, but just like, yeah, like they get like autoimmune diseases or whatever, or like they just start like withering away basically because they don't have that outlet. And so I think it is important, like you said, to try to find things outside of yourself. Um, and looking back now at my younger self, I was very much like work, 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 work. But for what? I
For what?
mean, at the end of the day, yeah, I feel like my job contributes to the world in a positive way, but it's also still a job, and it can't. I used to take it home with me so much.
I
It was
remember
hard. That I
Because
remember.
I remember, because I used to as well. I know
Yeah.
that I've shared with you, and I think I've shared on this podcast similarly, that I was most successful. I was having the best year in my career
Yeah.
when everything else was shit.
So hot tip,
Yippee!
if you want to be at your job, just have everything else in your life go to all hell and you'll be successful.
Right.
How they
I
all do it.
commend people that can be a badass at their job and find that balance, you know? I'm still searching for it constantly,
Mhm.
but you know, yeah, dude, it's I commend you all for being able to do that because it's hard, especially as
It is
someone
hard.
who is a perfectionist, like a recovering perfectionist, because that in itself, or workaholic, or fed that boss babe mentality, you know?
Not the boss babes. Don't
Yeah,
come for
not the
the
boss
boss
babe.
babes.
But you know, that
Boss
whole
babes, we
culture.
love you.
I
Don't come
know.
for us in the comments.
Don't come for us. But you know, it was part of it's that whole
No, yeah, it's a
overworking
chase. It's a
thing.
chase
Yeah.
for perfection and for achievement. And actually, that reminds me, I wrote another note to myself, and it was like, it says, learn to be satisfied. And
Mm.
satisfied is in all caps. I was like, chasing happiness is a fool's game. Happiness is fleeting. And I guess so is perfection. Perfection, happiness, achievement, those things are all fleeting because the goalposts keep moving. So
Yeah.
for you, yeah, I've achieved this one thing. Okay, well, what else can I do? And
Yeah.
so you're never actually achieving perfection. And in my case, I felt like I was never actually achieving happiness because I kept searching and
Yeah.
thinking, could there be more? Could there be better? And that was for all aspects of my life, especially in the people that I was choosing to spend time with. And I was like, well, I'm never going to learn to be happy if I don't think about like what is actually important to me
Yeah.
instead of trying to think about what more could there be.
Yeah. It's and when you boil it down, it's like enjoying or finding gratitude in the current situation that you're in. Yeah, that's 100% true. For me, the reason why I brought up perfectionism and being a recovering perfectionist is that that was the first piece of advice that I wrote down in my little list was perfectionism is not a personality, it's a cry for validation and acknowledgement. And I know we've
Mm-hmm.
talked about this in the past, but yeah, that was so my personality right when I started my job, like my big girl job, you know?
Yeah.
It was very much how like I would look and give advice or look at my early 20-year-old self staying the latest at the office when no other cars were in the parking lot and be like,
Yeah.
"For why, girl?
Literally for why?
For
Who's giving
why?"
you a medal for stayed the latest at
Yeah.
the office today? Are you
Yeah.
getting award for cried the most in her car this year? Like,
Cried the most in the bathroom, in the car, in the in the
just cried the most.
cubicle, in the hallway, under the desk, you know?
Damn, man.
Yeah,
Not
it's
crying under the desk.
so
Okay.
unhealthy, you know?
Mm.
Yeah. And then when I realized that it was, I don't know exactly when it clicked, but all I really was looking for was acknowledgement and validation, and what I was doing was correct. And,
Yeah.
you know,
But that
so
can't come from anyone else. And I
no.
think that's also been one of the hardest lessons to learn is that that validation and that love is not going to come from anyone but you. And
Yeah.
that's been, if I could look back at younger me, especially like very early 20s me, who was very much lost and confused and trying to figure it out. I was like, girl, it's not coming from anyone. It needs to come from you. And I was
Yeah.
super chasing the high that I had also felt in college of like, achieve, 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 be the thing, say the stuff. Like, and it didn't make me that happy,
Yeah.
really. I guess in the moment it all felt really good.
Mhm.
Um, but I don't know. And it's not that I don't want to achieve things. That's not what I'm saying either. But just this hustling with no breaks and no rejuvenation and no resetting. I'm not doing that anymore.
No, 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 no. Yeah, in
Yeah,
my
jeez.
current job, I was talking to some of my former coworkers, and we were talking about one of my friends. She was saying that she hadn't had lunch, hadn't taken a lunch break in in the past week or a couple days of the week.
It's
And I
very
was like,
common in my
girl,
job.
girl, what you doing? You know?
Like, why?
And it was, again, I don't want that for her, obviously, but I remember being in that position and just
Yeah.
skipping breaks to get things
Mhm.
done because I said yes to something that I probably should have said no
A
to,
no to. Mhm.
to allow myself to take that break. So I understand completely where that's coming from, but I am that perspective of me now. I take my damn breaks because it is not in my pay grade to not be taking breaks, you know?
Yeah. I think
So
the
it's,
unfortunate thing about the people I work with, when I think about like the assistant principals and the principals, like there's always something. Maybe there's a child in crisis or a teacher in crisis, or you're supposed to then go to this meeting or that meeting. And so when something happens and they're like, I haven't had lunch yet, I'm like, you stay and eat. I'm gonna go handle that and I'm gonna come back. Like, it just makes me sad because similar to you, I used to be the same way. Like, oh my God, I haven't eaten lunch yet. And luckily, like, my team is really supportive of like, sit down, eat something, or like, let's order something, which not the super healthiest, but whatever. Like, let's order something. We'll
yeah.
be so happy when it gets here. We'll eat and I'll be okay. But yeah, and I hate that sometimes I think people feel like it's a badge of honor to not eat lunch, and they say it almost with pride. I have just been so busy today, like I didn't eat. I'm like, okay, well that's not great,
It's not great for
actually.
you. Yeah.
Or your brain or your body. How are you supposed to keep working? You trying to
Yeah.
hustle on an empty tank? Like, it's
Can't.
not going to end well for you.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Not
okay,
sustainable.
another piece of advice, and I don't know if you have any that correlate to this.
Mm.
The advice was, don't date, or at least don't date seriously. Have some
Interesting.
fun, but don't make really solid plans. It's like, okay, I see you. I see you and I feel you, because I definitely have been a serial, like, long-term relationship bitch forever. And like, what's the point of dating if we're not getting married? But not. But not. And I relate to this. I was, you know what? Yeah, I kind of wish that I'd had, and I did. I took some time, and I realized in that time that like casualness was not necessarily for me. Like the one night stand wasn't necessarily my vibe, but there was a lot of learning in the dating process of,
Yeah.
even though it wasn't that many people, just like date here, date there, try it out, talk to somebody, even if you don't end up going on a date. But I do think was helpful in learning about myself. And I think the alternative to that is like be alone, which works for some people. I
Mm-hmm.
think that you really found a lot of yourself in the being a long period of time.
Yeah.
And so it's just different strokes for different folks, is that the
Yeah.
saying? But I just laughed really hard when she was like, don't
Just
date.
don't date.
Just don't date. Don't date. But I think it falls in line with the shoulds and the idea of like you should be dating someone to find your future partner to be with forever and ever. Amen.
Not the amen.
Amen.
Amen. Yeah. I mean, that is funny. I could just imagine you hearing that and be like dying. But yeah, I mean, different strokes for different folks. I mean, again commend all of my friends that have gone through dating multiple people at once. None at all.
That's hard.
One person or talking to like a couple people at the same time. Dude.
Evelyn said that's what you're supposed to do. So
I got no advice from any of my parents.
well, I
But
can't endorse Evelyn's advice, but go on.
good disclaimer. Very true. But yeah, I was of the people that just chose not to date after a long-term relationship. So it's just what I chose to do, and that worked for me. And for other people, that's just, I would always just be like, dude, I don't know how you do it. For all, like, going through dating a bunch of people, I was like, I could not emotionally carry this along with my job that I was trying to be perfect at.
Yeah.
And just balancing all of that.
Okay, wait.
A
This
lot.
could be like a whole other episode, but I feel like I went personally through two different phases of dating. One of them was just casual, like I'm not looking for anything serious. I'm just trying to have fun. And that was really hard. And that's around the time where Evelyn was like, well, you should be talking to multiple people and setting up multiple dates, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, I don't know how your crazy ass juggled all that, but I am having a hard time with this. I feel guilt for whatever reason. I was doing it for like all the wrong reasons. Basically, I was just avoiding, avoiding, avoiding. And I think that's where it gets tricky. Are you dating to, and I would ask my younger self this, are you dating to avoid confronting the real problem? Or are you actually dating to learn more about yourself? And younger me totally would have lied, because I did lie to myself at first. And I was like, I'm dating so I could just get used to casual. Like, I've been so serious, serious, serious. Like, I just want to just get it out of my system. Which, no, I was ignoring all these other problems that I should have been dealing with. And I dealt with them eventually, because I'm here now. But then the second round of dating I did was much more intentional. So I was like, you know what? If I want a long-term partnership, I have to try. It's not just going to appear on my doorstep one day, you know? And I did have a meet cute at a coffee shop, but didn't pan out. But I dated with more intention and slower, even though I did date a couple people. So I just think that there is a difference. And if I was looking back, I would have been like, hey girl, you can slow your roll. You don't have to jump around. You can sit with the discomfort.
Yeah. Take a pause and just kind of ask yourself. But again, would 20-something-year-old self resonate with that at all? Be like, what are you talking about? You old person?
Avoiding something? Really? How dare you?
Not at all.
Not at all. How dare you, future me? You don't know anything.
Yeah.
You don't get it. Parents don't understand. But I think all these pieces of advice that other people have shared and that we've even talked about ourselves, I don't know. It's just something, but maybe this is just my own brain. Like, you just got to go through it. You got to live it. You got to learn it.
Yeah.
But,
yeah. I think a lot of the hardest lessons that you learn is through experiencing and going through it. Because there is no other, yes, like I mentioned, you could learn by taking heed on what other people have done. But at the same time, there's nothing like going through it and out of it that provides you with the deepest learning lesson, Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we will be sharing bits of advice that come to us as they come to us, but these are just the ones that we thought for now. Before we close out, though, is there any other advice that you might want to give to younger you or to someone else who's listening that might be resonating with you?
Yeah, I have two quick little ones. For past Melissa, early 20s Melissa, it's okay to not know the answer.
How dare you say I don't know?
Yeah, so
How uncouth of you.
Yeah, because past me was very much afraid of looking dumb, of looking like I don't know what I'm doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Terrified. Why?
And I mean, we could delve into that, but past or current version of me is very okay with being like, I actually don't know. That's a great question. Let me get back to you.
Yes.
Or let me ask someone that might know, because I'm not trying to make something up.
I don't know why it took me so long to realize that people, and I learned all of this being like a school leader, but like, people appreciate more when you're able to say, I don't know, but I will find out. You find out, you get back to them. That's what they appreciate. They don't appreciate being lied to. Yeah. They don't appreciate you guessing. And people know usually when you're bullshitting. So it comes back to bite you in the ass. So fully agree. It's okay to not know the answer. You're not dumb.
It's okay to not know the answer. You're not dumb. You are being human by not knowing everything. Right? Because you're not perfect. It's fine. But okay. that is one of the big ones that I think I learned through experience, that it's okay to not know the answer.
No, I love that you brought that up.
Mm-hmm. And then the other thing I will say is that confidence in whatever you're doing comes easier with experience. So give yourself grace. You're not going to be great at something the first time you do it. You're not going to be great at it the second, third, or maybe even fourth time you do it. You're probably not going to be great at it maybe the fifth and sixth time, but the more that you do it, and as long as it's making you happy, then keep doing it, you know? Confidence in what you're doing comes with experience.
Wait, do you remember the first time that we tried Soul Cycle together? And then we held that candle?
Shout out to like the first season of this podcast. That was the first season.
And that is like the most girl thing we've ever done. She literally held the candle between us, you guys, and we blew it out.
Do you think they still do that in classes? I haven't gone since.
Yeah, they have. But that's so true. I was so scared. I was so scared of going to a Soul Cycle class. I felt like it was like a really for the fitness girlies, for a different price range, different demographic than me. And we tried it. It was actually pretty great for me. It wasn't your favorite, and that's okay.
Just like pottery wasn't your favorite, you know?
Right. You just try it, but you're right. Confidence, anything, pottery, Soul Cycle, literally anything comes from trying it. Don't be scared to try it.
Yeah.
Just try it.
And if you don't like it, then that's fine too.
Okay. Yeah. And if you don't know what you're doing, you can ask.
That I need a reminder of that sometimes too. Still to this day, is like it's okay to ask for help.
Just play this episode back. So if you're listening and you don't know right now, there's something that you feel like you're supposed to know, but you don't know. It's okay.
It's okay.
Ask for help.
Yeah. I would have loved to hear that too. Just ask for help.
Just repeat this part of the podcast over and over. It's okay. Ask for help. It's okay. Ask for help. That's our mantra for this next year.
For life. For life, really.
Well, okay, if you're sitting here and you're like, oh my gosh, I love all this advice, and what advice would I give to myself? And I think one way that you can be comfortable is to borrow Melissa's exercise of imagining that you are having coffee with your 20-year-old self. Put yourself in the position of her. Who was she or he? Who were they? And try to have a conversation with it. Maybe journal about it. Talk, say things out loud. Because part of this too was when I was having a conversation with someone about the advice, a lot more came out. And even now when we're talking, a lot more came out in our reflection. So I think it is a helpful exercise to do. And I'm glad that I put myself in the place of like, what would I say to little Vanessa? What she need to hear?
Vanessa, little Melissa. Young girl, she didn't know what she was doing. And it's okay.
And that's okay. And that's okay. Thank you so much for listening. If you have any advice that you would like to share with us, please make sure that you DM us on our Instagram page, and we'll be sharing our own advice over the course of this podcast being released. So really happy to get to share that time with all of you.
Be kind to yourself, because your future self, will appreciate it. That's what we'll end on. That's the advice. See y'all next week. Want more of the I'm Uncomfortable podcast? Follow us on Instagram and TikTok at imuncomfortable.podcast. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and join our Facebook group, the I'm Uncomfortable Club, to gain early access to our episodes and exclusive content. We're available wherever you get your podcasts. Thanks for listening.